Good morning. My name is Sharon Tomlin, Assistant Professor of Management in the Department of Business Administration here at Angelo State University. Welcome to the third Norwest Bank Distinguished Lectureship in Business. Business development is, on the face of it, a journey into the unknown. The crystal ball has yet to be invented that would tell us exactly what direction to go, what products will be bought by our customers, how our competitors will react to those products or services, economic ebbs and flows, how business practices will change, how international markets will develop. But yet American business today is thriving. While the media tells us stories of how big businesses like GE or Ford or IBM are thriving and managing to navigate their way through this turbulent environment, it is the small businessman who's made America the symbol of entrepreneurship, tenacity, and just plain hard work. I hope that each of you here are prepared to hear some great stories today and get some informative insight about how our two local success stories have thrived in today's extremely competitive environment. The Norwest Bank Lectureship was established in 1995 by Norwest Bank San Angelo and Angelo State University as a means to educate our students, our faculty, and our business community about how the most successful small, medium, and large businesses are meeting the challenges of today and preparing for a sustainable future. In addition, the San Angelo Chamber of Commerce has joined this endeavor by sponsoring a reception in honor of our guest. Our two previous lecturers have included Robert Harries, CEO of USAA, and Richard Kovacevic, CEO of Norwest Corporation. In its third year, the lectureship is proud to have two local success stories to share with you: David Hirschfeld, CEO of Hirschfeld Steel, and Steve Stevens, CEO of Town & Country Food Stores. However, before we introduce our guests, I would like to acknowledge a few of the people who've made this day possible. First, our selection committee, who are listed on the back of your program, have worked diligently to bring this excellent program to you and include the following people: Dr. Robert Hagelin, Dr. David Alexander, Mr. Harlan Bruhal, Dr. Sudhir Chawla, Dr. Andrew Dane, Mr. Dean Feathers, Mr. Frank Rudnicki, Mr. Kenneth Ross Sparks, myself, Dr. Thomas Yoakum, and members of Delta Sigma Pi Professional Business Fraternity, who are here today to help us. You may have seen some of them out in front giving you a program, and they will also be assisting us today when the question and answer period starts. Second, I would also like to acknowledge Dr. Heineman and Dr. Person, whose support and encouragement of this event is very much appreciated. Third, Doug Kissinger. Sorry, Doug, are you here? I just promoted you. With the San Angelo Chamber of Commerce. Fourth, I'd like to acknowledge Jim Cummins, President of Norwest Bank San Angelo, whose hard work in this endeavor and in our community is exemplary. Mr. Cummings would now like to make a few remarks before our speakers take the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Tomlin. My remarks are very brief. They're simply this: on behalf of Norwest Corporation and Norwest Bank Texas, Norwest Bank San Angelo, I welcome you to the third annual Norwest Business Lectureship. As Dr. Tomlin stated, our first lecturer was General Robert Harries of USAA. Last year we had Richard Kovacevic, Chairman and CEO of Norwest Corporation. This year is a special event. The two gentlemen that you'll hear today bring high honor to Norwest Corporation. They are two gentlemen who are industry leaders. They've been recognized not only locally, but on a statewide basis and on a national basis. We are truly honored to hear from these two gentlemen. Again, thank you. On behalf of our corporation, we welcome you.
Thank you, Jim, once again for your hard work and support of Angelo State University. Now, I would like to introduce Dr. Andrew Dane, head of the Department of Accounting and Economics and Finance, who will make the first lecturer introduction. I'd like to also add that there will be a question and answer period immediately following both speakers, so please hold your questions until then.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to introduce David Hirschfeld, who is CEO of Hirschfeld Steel Corporation. A little bit of background, but I'm going to be brief too. he heads a family owned firm founded in San Angelo in 1946. And I found it interesting that when he joined the company in 1962, the company just had 5 employees and sales of less than $50,000. Today, Hirschfeld Steel is, there are more than 800 employees with annual sales of over $150 million. The company is at a national and international level at this time. And David has been very, very successful. He's been Citizen of the Year in San Angelo, so he's obviously very active in our community. I think what you'll find is that he's got a very interesting story to tell. Certainly 50,000 to 150 million, local company to an international company, should be very helpful for us. Currently, he's director of West Texas Rehabilitation Center, a member of the executive board of directors of Angelo Community Health Foundation and Texas Commerce Bank, Texas Association of Business and Chambers of Commerce, and the American Institute of Steel Construction. It's my pleasure to welcome David Hirschfeld.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Dane. I'm fighting a cold, so excuse me if I have to take a break every once in a while. Well, it's certainly a pleasure and really a privilege to have been asked to be one of the distinguished lecture persons for the Norwest Lectureship. In a recent newsletter from our church, our preacher tells about a group of tourists who were visiting a picturesque village. As they walked through this village, they passed by an old man sitting on a park bench. In a rather patronizing way, one of the tourists asked him if there were any great men born in this village, to which the old wise man said, "Nope, only babies are born in our community." Well, this shallow question brought a very profound answer. There are no instant heroes, whether in this village, this world, or in the kingdom of God. Growth takes time. Today, I hope that I can adequately portray to you something about the growth in my life and that of our company. I will also include my views about the values that we place upon ourselves, which I feel make for healthy, personal, daily growth. Wow, what a big world we've created out there. Since 1987, homes and offices have added 20 million fax machines. Email addresses have increased by over 50 million. The U.S. work world has added 55 million computers, and close to 19 million people now carry pagers. No wonder you, as college students, are being overwhelmed with an anxiety in terms of what will be next and what will I do with my life after the security of my college life has ended, or after the security of my parents' financial support ends. What should I do? What is my destiny? And what does this all mean? As we begin life's journey, these are questions that we ask ourselves. All of us as thinking people want to understand why we find ourselves on this rutted road and where this journey will lead us. There are no answers to this question, but it does challenge us to think deeply about our actions, reminding us in many respects that life is an inward journey, led by our virtues. The wisdom of knowing yourself is of utmost importance in setting your direction. Being adrift in the world can be in no small measure the result of failing to live by the ancient Greek philosophers' belief that the unexamined life is not worth living. If you are the person that is concerned about this, then my answer is don't sweat it, because in many respects, life is a journey toward understanding oneself. On the other hand, if you are the type that has no concern about your journey, then I would say to you, maybe you ought to start sweating it. The purpose of my double talk is simply to say that there needs to be that sense of urgency about your future now. And if you have it, then chances are you're going to be all right. The difference might be in our courage, our compassion, our honesty, loyalty, and all of the other virtues that make a difference. Realizing that how we journey is infinitely more important than how far we journey. Well, how do we know if we have that urgency that you're alluding to? Well, it will show. It will show by your enthusiasm in study habits, your extra effort at your job, your relationships with your friends and family. It will be apparent within when you really get serious about your future. It's when you have really decided that the rest of your life is about to begin. I can recall back in college days where every day at college was academically a real struggle for me. I was a C student with a major in engineering. We did not have the SAT scores to reflect upon then, and so maybe I was out of my league in terms of the sciences and the mathematics that are obviously prerequisites to an engineering degree. But you know, they didn't tell me, and I didn't know it, and I went right on believing that if anyone could pass those courses, then I too would pass. And I never quit trying. There were times when I would go days without sleep, trying to balance my part-time work with that of learning the engineering courses. My blurry eyes would often cry out, "Oh Lord, why is it so difficult?" I must admit that some of those courses I might have taken more than once. But I still had that sense of urgency. I had one up on some of you. That one up was that I knew what I was going to do when I graduated from high school. I knew that I was going to attend Texas Technological College in Lubbock, Texas, now Texas Tech, and I was going to get a degree in civil engineering, and I was going to come back to San Angelo and go to work at whatever job there was to do in my father's small welding shop. I had set an agenda for my future, and it was driven by this sense of urgency. Only I knew of this dream that surrounded this agenda. For fear of rejection, I shared this with no one. I knew that if I divulged this, the response would be something like this. Now let me get this straight. You want to be a welding shop operator when you graduate? Knowing that big salaries are addictive and also counterproductive to a poor company, I was willing to accept a pittance of a fair salary in order to grow this big plan. So far, so good. Until near graduation time, and then the unexpected from my father. He said, "David, you really need to settle down first. Getting married and having the military behind you would be very beneficial. Then I would know that I could really trust you to hang around my welding shop." Well, that wasn't necessarily the way my agenda had been planned, but what the heck, it would be a diversion and not a setback. So being the obedient son that I was, I said, "Yes, Daddy." Well, returning 2 years later and having that army behind me and now a wife and a child, I still had that sense of urgency. I came back to that same small welding shop with my dad, and we began to build a conservative relationship together. It is one that I shall always treasure, with the memories of our past blended into our agenda for the future. The values of the church and family have always been the focus that have seen me through many difficult times without losing sight of where life was leading me. When these virtues become what we live by, our own actions turn out to be some of the best answers of the great questions of life. Excuse me. I grew up working in Dad's welding shop when I was barely old enough to push a broom around. I can remember that after school during the 5th and 6th grades, I would go to his shop and spend several hours a day turning the blower on the coal-fired forge that he had. So work was an inherent virtue that I did not have to learn. My 4 children grew up around similar circumstances and were a part of our ever-expanding growth. Today, my 3 sons work for Hirschfeld Steel in San Angelo, Houston, and Los Angeles offices. Additionally, my brother Dennis is Chief Financial Officer, as well as my very personal confidant. My dad had always hoped for an easier life for his kids than what he was exposed to. This is an admirable trait, but one that cannot be guaranteed by anyone. His desire for me was to own and operate a bowling alley with him. It seemed to him to be a much easier life. Well, did I aspire to be a bowling ball expert? Well, not in the least. This was not in harmony with my innermost values. I had planned on being an engineer. I have learned that when we clearly identify the values and proactively organize and execute around these values, we develop the self-awareness and the independence of keeping these meaningful promises and commitments to ourselves. This is integrity. Integrity is the value that we place upon ourselves. One of my favorite legacies indelibly printed in my memory on integrity is the story of when General Ulysses S. Grant accepted the surrender of General Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia. As General Lee's defeated army was paraded through Appomattox Courthouse, General Grant ordered his troops to stand in 2 single lines at attention and salute the tired and weary rebel army as they paraded between the 2 columns of Union soldiers. Additionally, General Grant gave them their rifles, horses, and complete freedom to return home. As the Union artillery began to fire salutes in celebration, General Grant silenced them with a statement that we do not want to exalt over their downfall. Well, fortunately, the bowling alley fascination did not prevail, as I know that my hosting a rock and roll bowling or boot scooting bowling on Saturday nights would not attract any customers. Well, our 5-man shop, now having grown to 6-man, began trying to gain the confidence of the area architects and contractors. The old and established fabricators made us easy targets as the folks that couldn't and wouldn't succeed. Well, we did a number on them. They said that we could not compete in this market, that we lacked the expertise, and that we did not have the staying power that it would take. These tauntings just motivated us to work harder and succeed. They said that we were out of our league, and you know, we probably were, and I didn't realize it, but we kept right on doing our thing anyway. Because of that attitude toward perseverance, more fabricated structural steel is being manufactured today in Hirschfeld steel plants around the country than in any of our competitors nationwide. The expectation for the family of Hirschfeld Steel Company employees is very clear. We will furnish our customers with the highest quality of steel building products obtainable, including on-time, on-site deliveries at a competitive price in an honest and forthright manner. Our best lessons on quality have come from listening intently and regularly to the construction company's demands for their fast-track jobs. Our oath of employment is one of performing our job with 0 defects. To reiterate again, we expect perfection. Well, do we get it? Well, more often than you might expect. Why not expect perfection? How many times would you allow an obstetrician to drop a newborn baby? Then why not have that same level of expectation in the business world? The excellent companies of today have perfection as their hallmark. Many new developments lie ahead in our quest for major projects around the world. One such project looming on the horizon is an advanced transit system using magnetic levitation to provide a friction-free rail system with induction motors built into the steel system. This system is an alternative to high-speed rail. The cars float on a magnetic field at speeds of up to 310 miles per hour. Our company is involved with a consortium of high-tech companies which are providing the design and the technical support for eventual construction in the Nevada and California area. This group of affiliated companies has advanced the design program immensely during the 15 years of our association. An enormous pool of structural, mechanical, and electrical engineers have poured thousands of man-hours into this development with the expectation of eventual common usage. This technology can transform transportation no less than the transformation brought by the steam engines during the mid-1800 period. Patience is obviously one of the virtues necessary in working on long-range projects such as this. To give you a flavor of the general nature of our business, it can best be told by giving you a simplified description of our activities. We process steel, I-beams, which we purchase from companies like Bethlehem Steel, United States Steel, Armco Steel. This steel arrives mainly by railroad to one of our 7 fabricating plants located in Texas and Virginia. Our workmen process the beams according to the shop drawings, which are prepared by our engineering department. This process will include sawing to the correct length, drilling of the many holes for the connection bolts, the painting, the shipping, and then eventually the erection of the many pieces to form the structural support for buildings, bridges, or industrial plants. Some of our projects that we currently have under work are the rebuilding of the Queensboro Bridge in New York City, along with the old Brooklyn Bridge. We have the corporate headquarters for both GTE and JCPenney in the Dallas area. Several Intel computer chip plants, and along with many hospitals. Our big beams for highway construction and bridges can be found outside of Lubbock and is part of a new freeway exchange in Hidalgo County. Down by Houston Hobby Airport, you can see rusty steel beams on the exchange leading to the airport. This is steel that is designed to rust so as to form its own protective coating. Other projects under construction currently include additions to airports in Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., and Baltimore. In Disneyland, we are working on a new theme park called Back to the Future, where Jurassic Park and Dino Land are being built into it. Since the 1992 Northridge earthquake in California, many of the large building owners are being forced to strengthen their building frame by retrofitting with heavier steel members. This has produced an unusual and unexpected new market for our operation. We also work the foreign construction market extensively through our sales office in Houston. Currently, our workload includes construction on a new steel mill in Trinidad, 2 copper mines in Chile, and fabrication of steel for a new United States embassy in an unnamed foreign country. In the construction industry, our company is a recognized leader nationwide for size, quality of work, and latest technology. Well, so much for what we do. Then how do I perceive the internal dynamics of our company from a CEO's perspective? I believe that my biggest job is to be an outstanding motivator of people. This is not to be confused with a manipulator. The difference in the two is the value that you do place on people, like being a friend, like comparing kindness to deceit. My checklist of things for me to keep in perspective goes something like this. Believe in the people that you hire and hire the best for the job. Provide an environment for personal growth and rewarding opportunity. Let each employee understand the vision and the direction of the company. Expect a lot from your people, including yourself. Provide incentives along the way for reaching obtainable goals. Sell yourself and the company to the employees every day. Give them straight answers, look them straight in the eyes, and never stop smiling and encouraging. And then lastly, don't ever forget what it feels like to sweep the floors. Everyone's success depends on how well a company is motivated. It lets the company grow to meet its objectives, thus letting the employees prosper according to their contribution. Certainly, the community is a benefactor, as growth is what keeps a city young and an exciting place to live. In closing, I would like to leave you with these thoughts. An excellent company today owes you, the new employee, the most rewarding experience of your lifetime. This is your chance to realize your capacity to grow, to achieve, and to make a difference in this world. I certainly hope that within our company of 800 employees, each will find this level of personal and professional success. This is what a motivated person with a sense of urgency should expect from their job. Nothing more, nothing less. A motivated person should also expect to stay in school their total career. Today's companies take no pity on the person who gets lazy about learning. Either you take personal responsibility for your continuing education, or you end up without the knowledge that you need to protect your career. Lifelong learning is your best way of remaining competitive in this rapidly changing world. Thank you very much for being so generous with your time and coming out to hear Steve and me today. And a special thanks to Norwest Bank and Mr. Jim Cummings for making this event possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hirschfeld, for sharing your personal success story with us. I'm sure many of the students one day will remember your words when they're searching for their career. Now, I would like to introduce Dr. David Alexander, who is head of the Department of Business Administration, who will introduce our second speaker, Dr. Alexander.
I can't come before this group and not point out that our great periodical, The Rampage, noted that the best major on campus was in the business area. Today's issue came out, and that's not a surprise to those of us in business, the students, because we know we have the best and the most highly motivated students, and of course, the best faculty. So take note of that, Mr. President. Now, if you haven't had a chance to read about Steve Stevens in your program, take that home and read it. Why? Because this is a person not unlike a lot of what you're doing at the moment. He was in school, working evenings at guess where, a place called Town and Country in Austin. Finished his degree. He had done such a good job there, they sent him to manage 6 stores, guess where? San Angelo, Texas. And he managed those stores well. The company, however, didn't do so hot, and it gave him an opportunity to take a huge risk, which he did. He took a huge risk, and entrepreneurs take risk. And what happens, that can work well, or it could work that you could be sleeping under the bridge on the Concho River. Fortunately, this worked well. Those 6 stores now have turned into 150 stores. They've opened 2 more since the 148 in your program. So it's a continually growing company. Of course, it's a success story, and we all know about Town and Country. We've all been there. And when you walk in to a Town and Country, you don't get 2 or 3 feet into the store until someone says what? Hello. So a wonderful example of the benefits of the free private enterprise system, and to an entrepreneur deluxe, let's say hello to Steve Stevens.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alexander, Dr. Tomlin, Dr. Hegland, Dr. Heineman, Jim Cummins, David. It's my pleasure to be with you today. I appreciate the honor and the opportunity to be part of this lecture series. There is certainly an inherent problem with being the second speaker on a program of this nature. I heard a good deal of my talk being given by David. But you know, it's really fascinating to me that as different as the steel manufacturing business is from the convenience store industry, so many of the principles are absolutely parallel, and perhaps you'll pick up on that as I move forward. There is one thing, though, that I cannot overcome from David's talk. That is his bragging about being a C student. I can't top that, and nor will I try. Well, when this assignment came along, we were asked to cover 3 areas in our talk. Basically, something about our company, how we got started, how we grew to where we are as one point. A second point being perhaps something about our business philosophy, our management philosophy, and then finally some words of recommendation or suggestion to the students, since so many of the audience would be students. And so that's how I have organized my comments for the next several minutes. There's a great story that I really love that is about a young person who approached an older individual who had been very successful in their career and wanted to know the secret of success. They said, "How is it that you obtained the great success that you have reached?" And the older gentleman thought about it a while, and he said, "Well, I guess I just jumped when opportunity knocked." And the young person thought about that a moment and said, "Well, I understand that, but how did you know it was opportunity knocking?" To which the older person said, "I didn't, I just kept jumping." And that I could sit down basically right now, and that would be the theme of my talk, because I really think that is to a very large extent the secret to success. I would like to tell you, as David did, that I had this great plan and design to start and grow a convenience store company in West Texas and eastern New Mexico, but I've got to admit to you that that is not at all what happened. It simply evolved, and I guess again I could say that when opportunity presented itself, when opportunity knocked, I was able to jump. Before I go any further, though, I want to introduce my wife to you, because the story of Town and Country, my story, is every bit that of hers as well, because she has been with me from the very first, and without her support and her pushing me out the door perhaps a lot of times, we would not be here today. So Pollyanna, stand up and take a bow. Well, I guess our story relative to Town and Country begins, as David mentioned in the introduction, when I was right out of the Air Force. Pollyanna and I were already married. We moved to Austin to finish our degree and got a job working nights so that I could go to school in the daytime. I was 22 years old. I was taking 18 hours a semester at the University of Texas, and I was working 53 hours a week. Now, that wasn't because I wanted to work 53 hours a week, but it's because I had gotten into this bad habit of eating regularly, and I wanted to continue that. And it became necessary to work that much in order to make enough money to go to school and to eat regularly. So that's how I got involved in the business. I joined a very small company. There were 4 stores, as a matter of fact, in that company when I went to work for them in 1960. And so that was my introduction into the convenience store business. I was majoring in economics. I did get my degree in economics from the University of Texas, and I was not planning to make a career of the convenience store industry. In fact, to the contrary, I was going to go into banking. When I grew up, I wanted to be just like Jim Cummings. But it didn't seem to work out that way. In fact, I interviewed with a couple of banks during my senior year at the University of Texas, and 2 things became abundantly clear to me. First was that if I did land a job in the banking business, I'd take a pay cut from my job managing a convenience store while I was going to college, and I said, there's something wrong with this picture. And the second problem was that, Jim, none of the banks wanted me. I did not get an offer, not one single offer. So the best offer I had was to stay with that little company that was in the process of growing at that time. They were just moving into the San Angelo market, had not opened the first store yet, and I was offered the opportunity to come to San Angelo and open the original stores here and be the district manager. So one day in late May of 1962, at age 24, I took my last final at the University of Texas. We loaded our car and headed to San Angelo, and about a week later we opened the first store here and continued to do so until we had 6 up and running over the next year and a half, at which time I was called back to San Angelo, rather to Austin, and became the vice president of merchandising for that company for another year and a half. And it was then, I guess, that opportunity knocked for me yet again, because the company I was with was in some significant degree of financial trouble, to the extent that they were going to have to sell the San Angelo stores in order to try to keep the rest of the company together. They had committed, and I need to say this, I think, for the benefit of the students here and perhaps the professors, as you talk about what makes business successful or not successful, they committed, I guess, 3 cardinal sins. 1, they were undermanaged. 2, they were undercapitalized. And 3, they tried to expand too fast. And the combination of those 3 things put them in the condition that, in fact, created the opportunity for me and my partner and the company that we were able to develop. After moving back to Austin, I had had a very interesting visit several months into that time period of my life, where a gentleman from San Angelo was in Austin for the day and called me and asked if I'd have lunch with him. And he was knowledgeable of the world of business and realized that that company was sort of on shaky legs, and there was a good probability that these stores might come on the market, and went so far as to offer his help should I have an interest in trying to acquire these stores if and when they did come on the market. Well, his thoughts turned out to be extremely prophetic, and that's exactly what happened. And interestingly enough, he had the same conversation with the man who became my partner, who had taken my place as district manager when I moved back to Austin. And I'm referring to Harold Gibbs. Harold is a native of San Angelo, and I don't think he's here today. Harold has been retired for a number of years. He's quite a few years older than I am, but we had a wonderful relationship over the many years that we have been together, and I say that in the present tense because I still consider him very much a part of our company. But I came out to San Angelo and told Harold that the company had decided to sell the San Angelo stores, and perhaps we might want to talk about acquiring them. And it was at that time that I found out that he had had the same conversation I had with this gentleman who had offered to help us get into business. And so, to make a long story short, we moved toward that direction. And I want to make a point about this. The way we had the opportunity to get into business was certainly not based on our financial resources. To put it very straight, we didn't have any financial resources. We had to have some backing from someone. We did not even have a package we could take to a bank that was a sellable, that was a bankable package. And so we had to have some people who believed in us enough to think we could make a success of it to back us. And I have to say, and I hope it doesn't sound too self-serving, but it's just reality, that obviously I and my partner Harold had made a previous good impression on this gentleman and others who were willing to help back us. And I think that good impression is what made them willing to support us. And that good impression was based on basic character traits, starting with hard work and integrity and some of the things that David referred to earlier. You know, I heard a long time ago, and I believe it's absolutely true, that today's assessment is the result of past performance. In other words, the way people look at us today and the way they view us today is based on our past performance and the way we've conducted ourselves, the way we have literally behaved over the previous years. So in 1965, at age 27, I was in debt $200,000. We had 7 stores and a company with a net worth of a negative $30,000. We were ready to roll. Our sales that first year were $1 million. And now, 32 years later, we have 150 stores with sales in excess of $250 million a year. And that is a pretty good trip for us in that period of time. I need to knock on wood, I feel like, when I make the following statement, that we have never had a year in our 32 years without making a profit. We've been extremely fortunate, a great deal. In fact, the totality of our good fortune is in the good people that have made the company what it is, that have helped us to grow the company. But if I make it sound easy, I really don't want to do that, because while it has been an awfully good situation for us, it has not always been easy. We've had some rough times. And I have learned that out of rough times can come some very good results. To me, perhaps an analogy would be in the steel fabrication, I guess at the point before David actually gets it, when it's being made, that steel is hardened and becomes mature and becomes strong under fire. And I really believe that we as individuals, in our character and in our day-to-day lives and in developing a business, also grow and become strong when we have to deal with hardships. I'll tell you one situation that occurred to us, or that we had to work through. You business folks in the audience will clearly remember this, and I'm talking about the 1985 oil bust. You'll recall that the West Texas in general, the Permian Basin, and all of this area out here had been on a major boom in the oil business, and we had reached a mentality that there's never going to be another bad day, and then the oil bust hit us. The economy was bad. Some of the oil patch towns further west out in the Permian Basin were losing literally up to 50% of their population in a matter of a few months. In fact, just as fast as they could get the kids out of school and go somewhere else where there was a job. I'll never forget the sort of black sense of humor that existed at the time, to the extent that outside Odessa there was a billboard that said, "Last one out, turn out the lights." And that was indicative of the very, very poor economy that existed. Well, now, what was that going to mean to Town and Country? We had stores at that time numbering probably about 100, scattered all over West Texas and all over the so-called oil patch. And we saw our customers moving out in droves. So how are we going to survive a situation like this? I'll never forget, I guess, calling a meeting of our management staff and talking about this situation and saying, you know, the next few years we will be tested very sorely as a company. A lot of stores will go out of business. A lot of companies will not survive this. And whether Town and Country survives and how we survive and how we end up on the other side of this economic downturn is going to depend on how we conduct ourselves over the next several months and several years. And I pledged to them that we would, by doing the right things, we would not only survive this period of time, but we would come out stronger on the other side than we went into it. I'm glad to say that that actually happened, but it was not an easy process. We identified stores that did not contribute or were not likely to contribute to the overall quality of the company, and we eliminated those stores. We examined each store on an individual basis with the idea that we would maximize the opportunity that we had in each individual store rather than the sort of mindless, let's add some more stores, which was really pervasive throughout our industry, especially during those go-go years of the 80s. So we started that process. We looked at every single store from a standpoint of how can we improve it to better serve the customers, and added services where that seemed to be the thing to do, remodeled, invested additional money in those stores where that seemed to be the thing to do. And I can tell you that that was a business principle that continues today and has stood us in good stead. Well, over the period of time that I have been in this industry and we've had Town and Country going, our company obviously, as well as the industry itself, has matured. There have been a lot of changes. We started off in the early days of our industry being just a basic fill-in operation for supermarkets. Back in those years, believe it or not, supermarkets closed usually by 8 o'clock in the evening, did not open till 7 or 8 in the morning, were not open on Sundays and holidays, and so there was a need for this kind of thing, and that was the genesis of convenience stores. Well, as I said, the industry evolved, and that's really no longer the role of the convenience store industry. In the early 70s, gasoline became a big part of the product mix of convenience stores. We put our first gasoline in about 1971. During the 80s, food service, prepared food became a major item, and that's continuing today with lots of changes in that category. Today, some of the biggest categories that we have in our sales mix did not even exist in our industry when we started. I'm talking about things like gasoline and food service and fountain drinks and coffee and things of that nature. It was mentioned earlier that we operate 150 stores today, but what I want to say about that is that that's 150 stores out of 225 stores that we have operated over that 32 years. That means that 75 of those stores, or fully 1/3 of the stores that we have operated on that period of time, are no longer a part of our company. We've either sold them or closed them because they either were mistakes to begin with, and I don't want to admit too many of those, but there were some, or circumstances changed that made what was a good store no longer be a good store. And the critical point of that, I think, is that you have to be open to change and recognize that circumstances that were valid in the past may not be valid in the future. I was thinking about our numbers of stores and the numbers that we have closed as I was preparing this talk, and it came to mind that of the first 20 stores that we operated, and it took us about 6 years to get to 20 stores, we operate only 2 of those today. So I guess the moral of that story is, had we been just bound to operate those stores, we would have been out of business a long time, because those 18 that we disposed of were the type that were dragging us down rather than improving our company. Well, with maturity as a company has come problems. Even as our company and our industry has evolved, so have the problems that we have to deal with evolved. Today we have problems on a daily basis of a major magnitude with labor issues, with legal matters. Seldom does a week go by that we don't have some lawsuit or the other filed on us for some alleged matter. Government regulations are rampant. Recently, as we were looking at some of the hoops we have to jump through to open a new store, one of our guys was looking at the inspection process that we have to go through. And that inspection, by the way, is plural, not singular. From the time we buy a piece of property till the time we build and open a store, there are in excess of 50 different inspections that we have to endure in order to meet the requirements that government units put upon us. I have said, and I believe it absolutely to be true, that it is as important and impacts our business just as much, if not more, what takes place at City Hall and in Austin, Texas, and in Washington, D.C., as what takes place in our own boardrooms. And I'm not talking just about Town and Country. I dare say David has that same experience in his company and anybody that runs a business, because the laws and the regulations that are passed have an absolute impact on the way you're able to do business. That's one reason I personally try to stay involved and alert in a political sense as to what is going on, because it has such an absolutely direct impact on us. Well, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about my business philosophy, my management philosophy. And there are 6 principles, I guess, I have identified that I would like to briefly discuss with you about my business philosophy. The first one is pretty simple. It's the reason for our existence, and that is to make a profit. That's what a business is in business for. Without making a profit, you can't stay in business. You can't provide the services that your customers expect. You can't provide the job opportunities that your employees deserve if you don't make a profit. So our number one business objective actually is to make a profit. Well, how do we go about doing that? That sounds pretty selfish. Well, in reality, by being selfish, we could be very detrimental to that very purpose. We have found that the way to make a profit is by obtaining customer satisfaction through happy employees. And I guess the best way for me to describe that to you is to read our mission statement, if I may do so. The mission of Town and Country Food Stores is to be an employee-owned company serving the convenience store and small-town supermarket trade areas of the Southwest by providing 1, consumers with products and service that fulfill their instant gratification requirements, 2, employees with careers that are rewarding and enjoyable, both short-term and long-term, 3, society with leadership and support, and 4, our stockholders with a better return on investment than they would expect from an average investment. Our second principle is one that actually I guess sounds pretty simplistic, and in reality maybe all of these principles are, but I have found that sometimes the simple theory can be the best theory. And that one is simply to operate our company in accordance with the golden rule. And I don't know how many of you grew up on the golden rule, but I certainly did, and it has had a meaningful impact on my life forever. And that simply means treating other people as you'd like to be treated, as you'd expect to be treated. And we try to do that. We try to treat our customers by the golden rule, by providing what they want, when they want it, and where they want it. We do that with a combination of things. Hopefully a friendly hello atmosphere when when customers come into the store. Clean stores, friendly service, just the kind of thing in addition to the basic product that we're offering. We also feel like it's absolutely vital that we apply the golden rule to our relationship with our employees. We feel like we owe them an opportunity for success, for self-fulfillment in their lives and in their jobs. And that goes far beyond just good pay. It goes beyond a full range of benefits, but we think that's very important as well. That's a part of that golden rule concept. What would we want? What would we expect from a company that we were working for? And we do have those benefits up to and including a retirement program. We even have a college tuition reimbursement plan. I expect some of the people here in this audience are beneficiaries of that. We have somewhere between 50 and 60 students, I think, right now on our tuition reimbursement program, many of whom are here at Angelo State University. We also feel that part of that golden rule is in advancement and growth opportunities within the company. We do our very best to promote from within. If we have an individual who is capable of filling a position that comes available, we'd much rather promote that person from within the company than to go outside to fill the position. We have 7 officers in our company, and of those 7, every one of them started part-time with our company while they were college students. Actually, there's one exception. One of them started as a high school student. But that says a lot, I think, to the younger people in the audience about how you may get on a career path without even knowing it. I dare say not a one of the 7 had an idea that this would be their ultimate career when they graduated from college. Sort of like David's concern about people saying, you want to be a welder when you graduate from college? That being working in a convenience store probably doesn't have that great a ring to it unless you look at the opportunity that is there, and certainly there are opportunities. Of those 7 officers, 6 graduated from college. 6 attended Angelo State University, or in some cases, some of these guys are old, so it was San Angelo College, so Angelo State hasn't been around that long. And I might add, for the benefit of ASU students, that 4 of our officers are graduates of Angelo State University. One other item that we provide that we think is to some extent the linchpin of the uniqueness of our company, that we provide to our employees the opportunity to own stock in the company. My partner, Harold Gibbs, and I, from day one in the company, sought a way that we could permit and encourage employees of the company, those individuals who make us successful, to have a piece of that success themselves by owning stock. I'm asked many times, how can I own stock in the company? And the answer is pretty simple. Go to work for us and you can buy stock. But you cannot own stock unless you are an employee of Town and Country. The third business principle I would mention is that of don't bet the farm. Now that flies a little bit in the face of the risk-taking that is necessary to start a business. We certainly bet the farm when we started the company. But what I'm referring to is once we felt like we had a good toehold in the business and that things were going well, sure, we wanted to grow, but we did not want to grow at the risk of losing everything that we already had. And that came from experience as well. Back in about 1963 or 4, shortly before the company that we acquired the original stores from started having their difficulties, I'll never forget, the owner of that company had a sign on the wall behind his desk, and the sign read 66 by 66. And that simply meant that he planned to have 66 stores in operation by 1966. Well, at that point, I think he had about 20. And he so focused on that goal, that target, that he, in effect, eventually lost the entire company by trying to reach that goal. It turned out not to be a very wise goal in retrospect. So we developed a very conservative attitude that we wanted to grow, but we wanted to do so conservatively and without betting the farm. Fourth business principle I would mention is that the fact that basic character traits are absolutely vital. Again, things that David referred to in his remarks. I'm talking about just the simple value systems of responsibility, reliability, dependability, loyalty, honesty, initiative, focus, and a term that David used throughout his talk, a sense of urgency. I can't tell you how critical that is in running a business and growing a business. If you wait until tomorrow to do things, you don't have that sense of urgency that it takes to be successful. You hear a lot about luck, being in the right place at the right time, and certainly there's a lot to that. But I have found that luck rewards good effort. Luck rewards doing the right thing. And the old story, the harder I work, the luckier I get. So that, to me, is the essence of having good basic character traits. The fifth business principle is to be a part of the community. Simply give back to the community something that you have gained from the community. The reality is that without the support of the community, we could not possibly be successful. So how can we operate and be successful in a community without giving something back to it? And the final business principle I would refer to is never, never think you have it made. When you feel that way, you just naturally are going to become complacent. And when you're complacent, you are at your most vulnerable point. I remember when we'd been in business probably 15 or 18 years, and we're doing very well. And I kept having this uneasy feeling that, well, you know, things are okay so far, but I wonder if they're going to continue that way. Is the industry going to go bad, or is the economy going to go bad? Are we going to not make it somewhere down the road? And I worried about having those thoughts in my mind all the time, because after all, we'd been doing very well for 15 or 18 years, had not missed a year without making a profit. We were a strong company. And then I read an article in a business journal that really made me feel good. And it said, if you are in a business environment and you don't have this anxious, uneasy feeling about your future success, then you're probably going to lose your current success. If you're not a little bit worried about what tomorrow may bring, you're probably so complacent that whatever tomorrow brings, you won't be ready for. So since that time, I have learned to not only live with, but in fact appreciate the fact that I can tell you after 32 years, I still worry about what's around the corner. I have to say I probably don't worry about it every day now, maybe not every week, but I do worry about it every month until I see the P&L for the previous period. Finally, in closing, I would offer some comments to the business students that are here today, and I guess there would be 4 points or 4 recommendations I'd like to leave you with. First one is to take advantage of your college life. This is a short period of time, despite the fact that some of you may not feel like it's a short period of time, and some of your parents may wonder why you're pressing and crushing 4 years into 5 or 6. The reality is that it is a short period of time, and this too shall pass. So, but while you're here, do please take advantage of the opportunities that you have. And I'm talking about opportunities, first of all, in education, to get a good education. If you are a business student and if you're planning to go into business, learn all you can about accounting, about finance, computer knowledge, business law, personnel management. I can guarantee you that you will be using all of those things on a regular basis once you get into the business world. Also, while you're here, take advantage of the social life. Develop a network of friends and associates and contacts that not only are rewarding on a personal and a current basis, but will be from now on. You never know when those contacts may turn into something of great value for you and for your contact on down the road in a business environment. And also, while you're here, if you have the opportunity, get some workplace experience. I can't stress that too much. It's really valuable, a valuable opportunity that you have. It'll look good on your resume for one thing when you are looking for a job, but the actual experience you gain will simply put you that much further ahead of people who don't have that kind of practical experience when they do go applying for a job. And as has been the case with so many of our company officers that I referred to earlier, including myself, you never do know when a part-time college job may be the start of a very rewarding career. So take advantage of your college life. The second recommendation I would make is don't expect to start at the top. Recognize what you don't know. Sure, you're coming out of university with a great education, and I can tell you that a degree from Angelo State University is as significant as a degree from any university in this state or country. It's a marvelous institution. You have chosen well by coming here, and it'll be worth an awful lot to you. But recognize not only what you do know, but what you don't know. Be willing and, in fact, expect to start at the bottom. It's really nearly a badge of honor to be able to say that you started at the bottom and you worked your way up and you know everything there is to know about mopping the floors and cleaning the restrooms and things of that nature that are a major part of the success of our company. So work your way up, learn as you go, do not hesitate to ask questions. Make sure you understand not only what you're to do, but why you're doing it. Character traits are absolutely vital, as I've mentioned earlier. So apply those traits as you start in your new job, in your new endeavor. Have patience and recognize a hard reality that it's awfully hard for younger folks to recognize. I know I had a lot of difficulty seeing this myself. Reality is business management is getting older. As I look around this room and see a lot of my aging friends, Dow, and others of us that are not too many years from retirement, you know what that amounts to? That amounts to great opportunity for young people who have positioned themselves in their organizations to be ready to fill some of those openings when they come up. Every company needs, and I can assure you is searching for, bright, young, management quality people. Third recommendation, make yourself indispensable in your company. Successful people do what others don't want to do. Volunteer for difficult assignments. Do your very best. Set yourself apart from the other people that you're working with. Become the person that your top management thinks about when a problem needs solving. And finally, let it happen. You know, it's great to know what you want to do, what you want to be, as David obviously did, but I dare say that for most people in this room, certainly it was the case for me, it was not quite that simple. It just didn't work out that way. So get a job, do the very best you can do, and when opportunity knocks, be ready to jump. Thank you.
On a personal note, I'd like to make a comment. I remember my father, who was a plumbing contractor here in this area, was involved in the construction of some of the first town and country food stores. And I remember him remarking to me, of course I was a very young child, but I remember him remarking to me about how impressed he was about the honesty and integrity of the two owners, Harold Gibbs and Steve Stevens. And also, I'd like to personally thank him for managing to build a town and country food store in nearly every town between here and where I go skiing. You always feel like you're not far from home when you see a town and country, you know. Now, and also, Mr. Stevens did mention one thing. He mentioned that it's important for the students to get experience. And along that line, I'd like to recognize two businesses who are involved in this endeavor today, both Norwest Bank and Town and Country, for being participating business sponsors of our business internship program here, which allows our business students to get experience that's very valuable to them when they start looking for a job. So once again, a big thank you to both our speakers. And now is the time we would like to ask for if there are any questions for our two distinguished speakers. Any questions? Yes. If you would stand.
About the manufacturing at Angelo and I noticed that it seems like Angelo is growing very rapidly. It seems that there's more services instead of manufacturing companies here. I was wondering if there's a particular reason why that is, why there's not more manufacturing. Is this essential, or is this a observation that we are lacking more manufacturing?
The question is, as I understand it, is why is there not more manufacturing industry taking place in our community as opposed to maybe more service organizations? Well, nationwide in our United States, manufacturing is kind of a dying breed. So much of the heavy manufacturing that we might have once become kind of accustomed to, so much of that is done in foreign countries where labor is so much cheaper than what it is here in the United States. So a lot of that, the emphasis is being transferred to foreign countries, and that gives rise to obviously the service industry as we know it here today.
Any other questions? We have someone here with a mic, so. Any other questions for our speakers? Now you have the mic, right? Yes.
I would like to ask Mr. Stevens a question. I'd like to ask Mr. Stevens a question. I notice part of the town and country food stores are built in other cities. There's always seemed like choice locations. Do either you or do you have a committee that picks out these locations for these stores before you build?
Well, obviously, store location is a critical part of the success in the convenience store industry. And we do have a committee, but it's a pretty small committee. In fact, it's a two-man committee. Those two individuals are Jim Little, who I see out there in the audience today, and me. We feel like we're going to give our employees an awful difficult time of making a store successful if we don't choose the proper location to start with. And so we think the very first step in being successful in our business is to choose the right spot. But Jim carries the water for us on that, and I might add, does a great job at it.
Do we have any other questions? Going once, going twice. Well, if not, next I would like to introduce Kenneth Ross Sparks, who's president of Delta Sigma Pi, which is the professional business fraternity here on campus, who would like to make a presentation to our speakers. So, Mr. Sparks, if you would.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out this morning, and I'd especially like to thank Mr. Stevens and Mr. Hirschfeld for taking time out of their busy schedules to come invest in our future. And on behalf of ASU and Norwest Bank, I'd like to present y'all with these plaques. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sparks. I'm sure our students will cherish this memento of this occasion. Now I'd like to thank our guest once again, Mr. Hirschfeld, Mr. Stevens, for being here with us and for attending our third annual Norwest Bank Lectureship. I would like to invite everyone back next year when we'll have as our speaker Mr. Daniel Kearney, who's president of Aetna in Hartford, Connecticut. Our speakers will be available during the reception outside in rooms 203 and 204 to talk with you, so stop by and visit and have a cup of coffee. And good morning. Thank you again for coming.